his best and go fight Earl Spence then. Shut up, take a little bit less money, be quiet, humble yourself, and fight Earl Spence, he a stud. Do what he say, and then you might be the challenger sometimes.
Man, sit your ass down.
So what do I do, YouTube? It's your boy King David in this thing, and I'm back at y'all again with another video. Okay, so before we get going on the video, man, y'all know what to do. Go on here, hit the like button, and if you're new here, be sure to subscribe one time for your boy, so we can continue to grow like we need to grow on this channel. You know what I mean? So yes, sir, man. Y'all see what the title of the video is, man. Jermell Charlo out here sounding weak again. Out here sounding weak yet again. I mean, every single time the name Terence Bud Crawford's name is brought up, you know, this dude always got some weak shit to say. It's always some deflection, right? It's always some pivoting. It's always some moving the goalposts. It's always a whole bunch of shit going on instead of what he should be saying as a fight, right? But don't take my word for it, bro. Take a listen to Jermell Charlo on Brian Custer's Last Stand podcast. Shout out to him and see for yourself.
You mentioned Bud Crawford.
Yeah.
Now, Bud Crawford was on The Last Stand.
Correct.
And boy, he had a lot to say about Jermell Charlo. And in fact, he said he thought getting a fight with you would be easier than getting a fight with Errol Spence, because he said, I think Jermell Charlo would push for that more than Errol. And his quote, this is what he said on The Last Stand, quote, "Something's wrong with that dude. He needs to stay off whatever he's on, because if I can recall, I was already a two-time world champion before he was even world champion. And I'm talking to both of them. So how somebody piggyback off my name when I was already the man? I don't understand that. I was already on the pound for pound list. I was in talks to be the next best thing since Mayweather retired. I ain't never heard of his name being in talks of any of that sort of type of thing. So how can I be piggybacking off of him and his brother's name when I've accomplished way more in the sport of boxing? If that don't make any sense at all, I don't know what does. I would love to get him in the ring and shut him up. I will F him up. The only thing he's going to do is cry afterwards. All he does is run around, yell, angry, and be mad at himself." End quote.
Just whatever, guy.
Okay, so let's stop it right here, y'all. Let's stop it right here. All right, so a few things I want to say first and foremost, man. The first thing I want to say is salute to Brian Custer, man, for asking this question and reading exactly what Terence Bud Crawford had to say about Jermell Charlo directly to his face so we can get his reaction, right? Salute to Brian Custer, man, because this is what we want to see, right? This is what we want to see. We want to see how you're reacting. We don't want to see the extra bravado that you put on after you heard what the man had to say. We want to see the initial reaction. So salute to Brian Custer for reading that, right? The second thing that I want to say is I gotta give Jermell Charlo a little bit of credit here, right? This is the first time that Terence Bud Crawford's name has been brought up and Jermell Charlo's eyes didn't fill up with tears, right? This is the first time Terence Bud Crawford's name was brought up and Jermell Charlo's voice didn't start cracking, right? He didn't start crying, right? It wasn't a whole bunch of theatrics and a whole bunch of emotional nonsense when it come to a guy wanting to get another guy in the ring, right? With a guy saying as a fighter what he should be saying about another fighter, right? So I just want to give Jermell Charlo a little bit of credit, first and foremost, right? For controlling his emotions enough not to well up with tears like he's been doing in the past, right? The third thing I want to mention is, did you see that reaction? I say, did you see that reaction, right? Terence Bud Crawford pretty much called Jermell Charlo out on his bullshit, right? Because a few months ago, Jermell Charlo made these statements that Bud was somehow clout chasing off of the Charlo brothers, right? When in reality, just like Brian Custer read, he's done much more in the sport of boxing than both of them combined, right? As a matter of fact, it'd be much more competitive if you're comparing their accomplishments if you combined both Charlo twins to a Terence Bud Crawford, right? So Bud Crawford pretty much called Jermell Charlo out on that ridiculous ass logic, and his response was very interesting, right? Because if you really believe what it is that you're saying, the first thing you would do is rebut what was being said, right? But if you notice Jermell Charlo's reaction, it wasn't a rebuttal, right? It wasn't a retort. It wasn't any kind of comeback or anything discrediting what Bud Crawford actually had to say about what he said. It was a smile and a grin and a whatever. And you know why it was a whatever? Because he knows that Bud Crawford was right, right? He knows that he's right. He knows that what he said was some ignorant bullshit. And there's no comeback. There's no response for it, right? You can't come back from saying no dumb shit like that. So the best thing for you to do is abort mission, abort conversation, and talk about some other shit and hope that the person asking you the question forget what the original question was about. So yeah, y'all, this was a deflection. Nothing but a deflection. You know what I'm saying? You know, which is pretty much standard procedure for a lot of these guys over on the PBC side. But let's keep it going.
You get your paperwork right. Talk to Mr. Heyman. We'll get a fight going. And you're damn right, it'll be easier. Let's get a big fight going, matter of fact. And I'll show you better than I can tell you. Ain't nothing easy in the ring with me, so I don't.
If Jermell Charlo was smart, he would stop right here. Let me say that shit again for the people in the back. If Jermell Charlo was smart at all, he would stop right here, right? Because first and foremost, what you said was already weak as shit in regards to a fight with a Terence Bud Crawford. You're telling him to call Al Heyman, right? Which, according to you and Earl Spence, you guys are your own bosses. So why the hell does a guy need to call an advisor when the boss is the one that's responsible over his career? It makes zero sense, right? But at least at this point, we can kind of respect what Jermell Charlo had to say. You know, he didn't get emotional. He didn't well up with tears, right? He didn't get angry and start deflecting and throwing tantrums and all kind of other bullshit. Shit that he's known for doing, right? He just said, call Al Heyman. I want to make the fight. You know, let's make it happen, right? Which is what we want to hear our fighters say, right? So if he was smart, he would stop right here, right? But notice how I said, if he was smart. Let's keep it moving.
You know, I'm grown. These kids, they just talk and just, he ain't fought nobody for real. You know, like he just got out of the top rank contract because Bob didn't want his ass no more, so he just got rid of him. So it's just like, I don't know. I'm like, hey, why you don't make the fight with the man that's in front of you? Earl been calling you out. Get him, get in the ring, man. You know, we don't know who these last guys are. He's signing deals with BKL, BLK, and he just doing business wrong. He's sloppy with his.
Oh, Lord. You remember when I said he should have stopped right there? I say, do you remember when I said he should have stopped right there, right? He kept it moving, and now the conversation begins to get more and more embarrassing for Jermell Charlo, right? Because the conversation goes from making the fight happen to just capping his asshole, right? I mean, first of all, he called Bud Crawford a kid, but isn't Bud Crawford older than Jermell Charlo? Make it make sense, right? I mean, you can't make this shit up. And then afterwards, he says that Bob Arum dropped him. But the reality of the situation is Bob Arum was actually trying to re-sign Bud Crawford in order to get him back in the ring with a Josh Taylor, right? He was trying to get Bud Crawford in the ring with his fighter Josh Taylor, right? So did he drop him? Or did he just decide not to do business with Top Rank anymore? Right? Or did he just decide to be his own boss and become independent, right? And cross the street like what your homeboy, Earl Spence Jr., was saying was a barrier to why the fight couldn't happen, right? Because Bud was on the wrong side of the street. So Bud crossed the street in order to get the fight with your homeboy. Because up until then actually, he was on the wrong side of the street, right, Jermell? Right? But we know you weird ass niggas don't want to talk about that shit. And then he proceeds to sound even more bitch made and cowardly by once again discussing another fighter, right? But the question was about a fight between you and Bud Crawford. So why are we talking about Earl Spence? I'm just trying to figure this out. Why are we discussing a guy that has absolutely nothing to do with you and Bud Crawford? Make it make sense, right? And these are the conversation. This is the part where Jermell Charlo loses all credibility with fight fans such as myself. Because if you call me out, or if I call you out, I expect us to address it directly. I don't expect me calling you out and you to be deflecting the call out to some other dude and vice versa, some other dude and this and that and all this old bullshit, right? It's bitch made at the end of the day, right? But you know, it only gets worse, man. Let's keep it going.
And I got my own little shit that, you know, I got Tim Zoo, and then I got all these other little shits. He got to get in line anyways. And he got Boots Ennis on his ass. Yeah. And he got Earl on his ass. He's trying to run. Don't run now.
I don't know who Jermell Charlo think he fooling with this goofy ass shit. I honestly and truly don't. Who the fuck he think he fooling with this? Right? Who he think he fooling? He got other fish to fry. You got mandatories. Right? Tim Zoo. Fandora. Right? None of those guys measure up to the level of credibility and notoriety and recognition that would come with beating somebody like a Terence Bud Crawford. Therefore, that should be your first priority if you're Jermell Charlo and you're the undisputed champion at 154 pounds, right? So instead of welcoming that energy, right? Like how you welcome Danny Garcia. I know y'all remember that, right? I know y'all remember when Jermell Charlo said he was looking forward to a fight with Danny Garcia. Instead of welcoming a challenge like that, you deflecting outwards. You will fight this, you know, you got other fish to fry. You making it seem like he's just another fighter coming up, when the reality of the situation is a Bud Crawford fight will be the biggest fight of your career, hands down, right? You know what I mean? You not fooling nobody. Like, we can see through the fuck shit. We can see through it, Jermell. We can see through it, Jermell. You know what I mean? We can see through the bullshit. You downplaying the fight like it ain't that big of a deal, but it would be the biggest fight of your career, a fight with a Terence Bud Crawford. And it's much more significant and holds much more relevance than everything else you got on the table. Point blank, period, end of discussion, right? And then you go on to start capping more and more and more, and this only serves to make you look worse and worse and worse as you talk, right? Because then you start bringing up guys like Boots Ennis, who we've already got confirmation from Bozy Ennis that the fight was offered to him, and he handed the fight over to Showtime, not having a contract with Showtime, but handed the fight over to Showtime nonetheless. And Showtime willfully admitting that they had no interest in doing a fight, right? So, complete duck, right? And you mentioned Errol Spence. I mean, who's the biggest duck in professional boxing? Nipping at Bud's heels as if Earl's been chasing Bud. I mean, just a lot of misleading, goofy shit coming out of Jermell Charlo's mouth at the end of the day. But we know what's real out here, Jermell. We know what's real. If you really wanted this fight, if you really wanted that fight, you wouldn't be saying all that goofy ass shit and deflecting and ducking and dodging the question and talking about you busy and all this shit if you really wanted the fight, right? So, but at least at the end of the day, you said you would take it. And I guess we can only, at this particular point, believe that you would be a man of your word. Because we all know your homeboy Errol Spence Jr. ain't, right? we can only hope and believe that you a man of your word and you will fight Bud Crawford if the opportunity ever came your way, because we know your homeboy Errol Spence ain't, right, the biggest duck in professional boxing. But only time will tell. Only time will tell, y'all. But let me know what y'all think, man. Hit it up in the comment section below, bro. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. And everybody, and I do mean everybody, be sure to hit that goddamn like button on your way out. But until next time, bro, I'ma holler at y'all. Peace.
Let's